Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it very much. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rachel Brenneman. I am the support specialist for the Poseidon team, also the 21st Century team as well here at the Center for Schools and Communities. I'll be your moderator today. If there's no other thing I have, I guess I'm going to go ahead and introduce Colleen Epler-Ruths. She is our presenter today, and we're looking forward to seeing what you have for us, Colleen. Thank you and welcome.
Oh, thanks. It's so nice to be back. Appreciate all of you folks joining in. I know it's a busy time of year for everyone, so there it is. Okay. So today's workshop is going to be fast and furious. I really struggled to try to pare this down and to give you some of the resources that I have available to you to help your students. You'll notice that some of this is going to be geared towards women and physics, but all of the strategies work towards underserved populations and STEM as well. So this is just really good ways to help all of your students. And hopefully you'll be able to use some of these resources and implement them, some lessons and some plans in your setting, depending upon where you are. So if you don't mind, you can drop your names in or just kind of tell me like your settings in the chat, like after school. Do you work directly with the kids, or are you a supervisor and you're going to share this? Just so I sort of have an idea of what folks' needs are, so I could kind of customize it as we go along. So my work is local, kind of, to Poseidon. I live in the region north of Harrisburg, where I'm the STEM consultant here at this Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit. But prior to my work here, and it's ongoing up until last year, I was a Step Up ambassador. And so Step Up is an organization inside the physics community, because I was a former physics teacher, that is working to increase the number of women that are going for a bachelor's degree in physics. And so I was able to kind of travel around the country. I did a lot of course, it happened during COVID then, so I did a lot of national webinars on this. I say that again just because I want you to know that these resources are free and available for you, and it's really being used the last year. The only reason I'm still not involved is because I had to either live in New York City, Chicago, or LA, because they're really trying to push these resources into the high school classroom. But it's hard to ask. And so the context is, when we look at the number of women that are in physics in the United States, it's not equal to the demographics. And we've seen that everywhere with everything. So anyway, just thinking about, again, physics, percent of undergraduate degrees awarded to women in physics. So I guess, and so you're going to use your fingers here. So if you're going to say 2, 3, or 1, or X, Y, or Z. So if you're in the room next to someone, it'd be great if you could kind of turn and talk to them. And you're going to guess which country has the highest percentage, which country has the X, which country has the lowest percentage, and then whose country Y. So first on that first one, so which one do you think is country, the first one, country X? So just put your fingers up. I can see. All right. So you could just like do it this way, I think. Or you could type 1, 2, 3 in the chat or something like that. You can put it in the chat. Like, so you would say 1 for Germany, 2 for Iran, and 3 for the United States. And then which one do you think is the lowest one? And then which one do you think is that Z? So of course, we sort of ask you this because what we think and what is in reality are not the same. So in Iran, actually 60% of the people that are getting a bachelor's degree in physics are women. and it's only 20% in the United States. So as colleges are graduating students right now, and those that are getting physics degrees, it's that. And Germany is even less. And so again, some of this data is from a few years ago, but we haven't seen a whole lot of switch. In fact, some of the trends are even more problematic than what we're seeing there. So that means that there's something happening, what we can take from that is that there's something happening within our population here that's discouraging women from going into physics and encouraging women in Iran. In Iran, physics is seen as we'll talk about this later, gendered career. And so actually women take physics and men do the engineering. And that's sort of like the way that their country works. Whereas in Germany, it's still very much a, women don't do physics sort of thing. But here's the thing, you folks are in the places, I know not all of you work with high school students, but even middle school students, you're in the place where you can sort of do something about this. So if you look at where girls take physics, what trend is it? Is it straight all the way across? Is it a slow decline, or is it more like the third choice there? So which trend do you see in girls taking physics? And you can pop it into the chat, 1, 2, or 3. Do you think the trend is straight, 3 where they take a lot in high school and then it's flat, or does it just slowly go down over time? And of course, the answer, let's see if we get it go, is this. In high school, more than half, you were walking to a typical high school class, more than half of the kids sitting in that upper level physics class or that physics class are girls. But it doesn't correspond to going off to college. It really just levels off to like that 20% that we see getting degrees. And so it's also happens to others, but in other sciences, it's not the same. So in chemistry and biology, we're seeing that it goes up or even higher. So it's not, we just don't know what's going on. I mean, like we do know what's going on, but we don't. And this same sort of trend happens with some minority populations. And I'll show you that again. So the broad goal of Step Up was to try to increase more kids going into physics out of high school, like looking at physics as a career path for them. And so you folks can kind of do that, but not only for your women, but also for your underrepresented minorities, because our goal is to have a more diverse set of people doing this kind of work so that we can see each other things. So the reason to look at the high school or the upper middle school level is because this is where the interest comes into possibly physics, and you get a greater time. So you have a great opportunity to be working with your middle school and your low high school students. But I'm not discouraging you from saying this sort of thing from your elementary kids as well. So Step Up is one there's a set of curriculum resources that you can go to do these. Now, again, like I said, they are geared towards women and geared towards physics, but all you have to do is switch out the word women and switch out the word physics and change them to STEM and to underrepresented populations. And you will definitely, it's just good practice for all that type of things. So this particular Step Up has 2 lessons, a careers in physics lesson and a women in physics lesson. And then there's everyday actions guide, which help you to think about how you are interacting with the students that you are working with. So these are just 2 lessons to use. And so that's real nice. At the end, I'll give you a curriculum that is actually much longer and goes in more in depth. So this, I think, is probably one of the best features of Step Up. And you can go to their website. I'll show you how to get there and download this. This is a poster to have in your classroom with your students, just to talk about how to conduct discussions. And it's really under, there says a lot of things there. So I'll give you a moment to read this, if you can imagine this in your classroom. And which one do you like the best? And I don't know how big is our group. So we have about 26. So if anybody wants to come off and say, hey, I really think that one's a great one or really interesting, you feel free to jump in and say something.
I'm going to go with share airtime equitably, because I think a lot of times girls get quiet and people get quiet when they feel like they're not in the power position. And so they're less likely to participate, and the louder person and the more forceful person seizes control of the group.
Great. Yes, I completely that. On the safety point. Oh, okay, so the safety. Okay, so this is more you putting that ownership on students to realize that sometimes that they're speaking and the way that they say things might impact others. So your rights should stop when they interfere with someone else's rights. And so it's not so feeling threatened and feeling discomfort are two different things. Did I help answer that one a little better? Awesome. So, all right, well, we'll come back to this one. In fact, we're gonna share you, you'll have an opportunity to kind of talk in small groups here. So feel free to ask about that one here. So anyway, so I highly recommend that you go ahead and when you get a chance, just print that out and put that everywhere in your classroom. I had 2 or 3 copies in my classroom when I was doing that. So these everyday actions, I've modified this guide to not to say physics, but also to say students or underrepresented students and STEM. But what I would love you to do is just take a look at this guide. So I have 2 ways for you to resource it. You can either scan the QR code with your phone and take a look at it. Hopefully it's not too small that way. If you're on a different computer, you could go to bit.ly and then type in, and the capital letters matter, but it's everyday actions, but it's EVYDAY ACT. And that should take you to this. And so this is something that you would share, you personally can look at, but you can also share with your staff to have them assess how they feel that their interactions with students and when they work with students give them ownership of their STEM identity, essentially. And so take a few minutes, look at it, and then we're going to pop you into some groups and give you a chance to sort of talk amongst yourselves about which one you think is really interesting or what you hadn't thought of before. And I'm thinking we can make groups of like 4 would be fine. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. So take a minute or 2 and look over this and just and if you want any clarification before we send you off into groups to sort of have a small group discussion around these everyday actions. Okay, so if there aren't any questions, go ahead and open it. We'll give you 6 minutes to take a look at that and have any discussions. And then when you come back, we'd love to hear what you think about these and how you might use this in your setting. So thanks, and see you in 6 minutes. Here they come. Woohoo! They're having such good conversations. Oh, it was so good to hear all the great conversations as I popped around the rooms. So hopefully each room will sort of share out 1 or 2 ideas about how they might use that in their context. So we'll start with room 4. I know, someone be the one that's willing to chat. Something that
sorry, were we supposed to go in a certain order? I'm not sure what group number we were.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to go and say the point that it's under plan and assess where it says, connecting STEM to other disciplines really stood out to me. Um, Making sure that, our affiliates and STEM educators are really showing students how big the industry of STEM is and how it seeps into other things. Because, like we were talking about, not everyone's going to be a physicist. Not everyone's going to be the person who's like programming computers. Not everyone's going to be in a lab all day. Some people might want to do, maybe work in like cybersecurity or work as a speech language pathologist or, go into psych and work with statistics. Like there's a lot of different things. And, we want everyone to see that they could have a place in a STEM field because there's, a place for them to be. There's a lot of different things that they could do because it's connected to a lot of different disciplines.
Thank you. So you were room 4, I think, or you don't know for sure. That's all right. Anyone, room 3, or just jump in?
I think we were room 3. So we kind of went down the path of like careers and personalized learning and, the idea of one, how do we identify, especially with our younger students, what they're into? Like we might know, as my partner was saying, that they're math minded, but they might not be able to express that just yet or where their interests lie. So how do we help them find that and navigate it? And then how do we normalize the like STEM design process, or like the idea of stories being really powerful, right? So having some stories that can help our students understand, like, it is normal to fail. It is normal to feel this way. It is normal to struggle with collaboration. And just as teachers, we don't always have time to seek out those stories, and they're hard to find because people don't necessarily want to share them. So that's where we landed.
Love that. Yeah, sharing the failure stories, right? So much more learned in failure. I love that. Room 2, if you knew you were in room 2. Room 1.
From room 1, one of the things that I think was really nice was using a lot of the stuff that was on the form to help build buy-in with parents to let them know that like STEM is important. And although it might not, because not every parent is like great at math, because I know I'm definitely not, but letting them know like how this is important and how you can help your child so that they can succeed.
Right. There was a lot of things when I was in the classroom. I thought I've tried my best in the classroom, but I never thought too much about reaching out beyond my classroom or beyond my program. And so, yeah, this one really encouraged that sheet really encourages you to go see your guidance counselor, go see, community people because it is a community that sort of needs to step up on this. So, last minute, anyone else have something they want to say? Okay, I just have to find where I was. All right, so we talked about the poster, we talked about this. So the 2 lesson plans then, again, they can be modified. In fact, I'm going to show you a middle school one later on. But the first one is just about careers in physics. And so you would want to do this perhaps in the fall with older kids, but like I said, I've got a middle school. There's a middle school one that's available too, which actually I will show you here. And so the way that this lesson unfolds is that you ask the kids to go and name a career that you can have with a bachelor's degree. And you can do it with sticky notes, or you can go online and do it. And this is the sort, with a bachelor's degree in physics, I must specify that. And this is the sort of initial thing they'll get. They'll think, oh, a teacher, maybe a scientist, maybe an engineer. But they don't have other ideas to know about other things. You can see it's kind of like some people say like analyst, and there's a lawyer in there, but the majority of them think teacher. And then what they'll do is they take a survey, which asks them 2 questions. And the two questions then help them match to a physicist, someone that has a bachelor's degree in physics that is like that. And so the one question, if I can remember, is like, wow, boy, it's been a while since I've done this. The one question asks them, what's their main, like when they get a career, what's most important to them? Is like family more important? Is like making good money important? Is helping out with society? And then the other one asks them something else in the second. Oh, personal value and the benefits of their work. So there's a matrix then, and it helps them identify. They have a whole bunch of physicists that help that they can read about. So it's to bring them with their values and kind of like what they want in a career, to give them an example of somebody that fits that. And then they'll get matched with somebody. And there's an online thing. You can do it online or you can do it on paper. And again, these resources, I will share how you can get these at the end. And then you have them read over and say, what's their personal values? What's the benefit from their work? What does their work allow them to do? And that. And what they find is that, and then at the end, they make their own personal profile, pretending that they get a physics they get a physics degree. And so they put their name on it, they put their future self, and like my name is, Colleen, and I got a degree in physics from where, and I'm using my physics degree now to work with teachers to improve their teaching, or, something like that. My future self is way out, but when you're 13 or you're a teenager, imagining the future. So imagining physics in their future. You can modify this to imagine it to be like an engineering degree or a STEM degree or something like that. And then they get to share out. And then at the end, they look at some surveys based on, again, physics. So I do apologize that this is focused on physics, but again, all of these things are applicable across a lot of STEM in itself. Lots of opportunities, high employment rate, and good job satisfaction. And if they're interested in going into med school or to be a lawyer, having an undergraduate degree in physics actually puts them in a really good place for doing well on the standardized medical exam or the lawyer exams. So. And then also starting salary is also pretty good. So those are the kind of things, just my own personal bias is I love physics and I love teaching physics, and I really wanted my students, I loved my career in education teaching physics. So it was a great thing. But there's all sorts of ways that physics can be used in all different kinds of careers. So anyway, my own personal bias about physics. And then at the end, you go back and you ask them, hey, what could you do with an undergraduate physics degree? And this is this sort of plot you might get. So again, opening their eyes to getting an undergraduate degree in physics, where it can take you. So let's see, how are we doing with time? I guess we are, well, we'll come back to this if we have time at the end, because I want you to get a chance to kind of dig into the materials that are there with this short amount of time. We do find, like research has found, that this particular lesson gives students an interest in going into physics, and at least a thought of it. When I used it, I had one girl say, no, she was a senior. She's like, no one has ever said any of this to me before, like so disgusted that this was not something that was discussed anywhere until her senior year. And, what a shame that we can't put this in earlier for kids. And so you have the opportunity to kind of do those things. I think the most impactful quote of those of teachers that have used it is this one: the posters the students make help them identify that they too could be a physicist or an engineer or a mathematician or STEM So again, modifying this to your setting or to what you think you would like to share out with kids. So that was lesson number 1. So again, like I said, this is three sets of resources. The one is the everyday actions and that poster. So just the environment that the kids are in. The second one is that careers in physics lesson. And then this last one is women in physics lesson. And they look at women in physics, but again, modified. In fact, the middle school one is modified, and I will show you that here in a second. The way this outlines is you research famous physicists and look at trends. You discuss gender issues with respect to that, and then you look about data around physics around the world, and then leverage your own personal experiences. So this is again the 3 things that are available on the Step Up site. So I will show you that, and then I'll show you the middle school lesson here in a minute. But go ahead, if you're interested in finding this, you would go to stepupphysics.org. I will show you that site. And under the curriculum, there's the career in physics lesson, there's the women in physics, there's the everyday actions. Again, the one that I made for you is slightly different, but this is also where you can find that poster. I think I just had it the other day. Self-reflection, teacher guide. Maybe the poster might be under the women in physics because there are discussions in there. Yeah, here's the poster, which I highly recommend you have. You know, that can be used anywhere. Okay, so let me show you the women in physics for the middle school program. So this would be something you imagine you would use with your younger students. And it starts out, so again, I gave you that. We'll come back to this underrepresented curriculum, which I tell you is the longer one I'd like to share out at the end. So for doing this with your students, you could either do this ahead of time or after school, or but you have them do a web search for famous physicists. And so they type it in, and then this is the sort of results you would get. And if you look at the images, this is what happens. And so again, using our science and engineering practices, we'd say, do you see any patterns in this data? So you want to maybe put in the chat some patterns that you might see in the data about famous physicists? Old, might I add. Yes, exactly. And if you also, if you're close by a computer and you type in cartoon scientists, you'll see the very same sort of thing. Crazy-haired old white guys for cartoons. It's getting better. We've definitely made some headway. I think people are beginning to understand that that's not as cool as we thought. But here's a really famous photo from 1927. So almost 100 years ago. And what do we notice about this photo? Is there is there another pattern in there? Do you see anything? Do you see our lone one woman in there? A single woman, yeah. Madame Curie, winner of 2 Nobel Prizes, like inspiration for all of us that are into physics. So, but there are, so then from that lesson, after they sort of do that preliminary thing and think, oh, that's interesting data. Let's learn some more about this. You can give them some information about 2 different women that did well in the STEM fields in physics. And they can also read about some current physicists that are modern day physicists. So bringing all of this information then is sort of like the setting the stage for them. Again, with your students, you would go over the poster and talk about what each of those steps, because we're going to have some conversations here from here on out. And there's that poster. So looking at this, which science field do you think is the highest percentage of women in it? So you can answer in the chat. Love this. Yes. And so why do you think biology is the one that most women go into? And then the lowest one is physics. We've already kind of discerned that. Now here is some data that includes not only men and women, but it also looks across races as well. So this is just bachelor's degrees. And the reason that we focus on women is just because we're half the population. And so helping the women, we're also by helping women, you're also helping the other part of the population. So here is the trends in bachelor's degrees. So at this time, more women than men are getting bachelor's degrees. Lots more in biology. Chemistry is doing pretty well. Even math and statistics, not as bad. But what the heck is going on with physics? And if we added engineering to that and computer science, it would also be pretty problematic. So this allows students to take a look at some historical data and so what's happened over why are things changing even over the last this is obviously a little older. I just reached out to them and asked if they have any newer stuff, but they're working on it. So there's a lot of work to be done to help with this one. And so even though it looks, this trend looks positive, right? Look at we have seen some increases in bachelor's degrees in physics, in Hispanics, and African Americans have gone down. But look at the percentages here. This is still so low. And it's not because they can't do it. There's things happening that sort of discourage people from that. Yeah. Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, you have, yes. Again, more data, more graphs, always good things to have your kids look at this one. This one's a little, I'm a little confused by it myself. I'm gonna have to reach out to that one because I think the US, it talks about the population here. And so I'm guessing we have less than 3% Native American, 15% Black, 21% Hispanic, 6%. But when we talk about percentage white, I think it's higher than that, but I could be wrong. Does anyone know? Anyone have an idea about that? But otherwise, I think it's pretty well represents. It's still representing what's going on. So achieving race equality is going to take a long time if at the rate that it's going. And just like someone just commented, like the populations are going down. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to impact. Here's another super interesting graph talking about percentage in the, and again, this is what you can share with, this is the middle school curriculum that you can look at with it. So percentage of female majors. So we're talking about kids that are in college now. I assume the size of the boxes is the population inside of that. So I know that psychology is the #1 degree that people get coming out of college. It's by far the highest degree. So you can see all these engineering, not as many women in these engineering fields, but a lot of biology, the psychology, the nursing, and then how much money they make. So again, just things for the students to kind of notice and wonder about when you show them these things. And then there's AP classes. Again, looking at ways for your students to get involved with this. And then you have that question, like, why do you think this is happening? And then, so once you've built that background information, there's all sorts of research now talking about children's anxieties. If we tell them all the problems there are in the world, but we don't give them solutions, we have harmed them. And so it's really important not to give them actionable things that they can do to reduce that anxiety. Like this world is like, there's nothing I can do to make this world or make things more helpful for me. And so again, you have the students talk about the differences, and then you talk about academic achievement and help them see that actually women and men do equally well academically. We talk about unconscious bias and gendered professions with them. And again, some of this you've already seen.
Colleen, there was a question from Samantha in the chat, and she asked, what about the global trend of population decline? These numbers could get even lower. She was just making a statement about that.
Yeah. I was saying, yes, the numbers will be lower. I don't know if the percentages will change or not. It's a real interesting question that I don't know the answer to, but we can only imagine, right? And so, again, these are things, so think about how you might talk about these with your students. But let me show you some of this data. So even like physics grading biased against women. So a small grade, even though a small grade might differ, how do you think this happens? So these are some research articles that have talked about it. And then we talked to the kids about what unconscious bias is. So even when we don't try to be that way, these things can arise. And we might even be unconsciously biased towards ourselves. Like, I might think, I'm a woman, I can't do that. And so again, remember I said actionable things. So helping students understand, become aware that that's a thing can help them overcome it. This happens pretty young. Girls are less likely to believe that they're really smart. And boys underestimate how well girls do, even though they do the same sort of grades. They think that the boys do better than the girls. Again, that math. And so we're talking about trying to help them find their identity. And the way that they talk to each other is something else. Like this is showing a boy talking to a boy. Wow, you suck at math. So boys in general will take on, if they fail a test, boys will say, oh, I didn't work hard enough. If girls fail a test, they'll say, oh, I'm not good at this. And I don't know why that happens, but we know that this is a sort of thing. So we need to talk to kids about their biases that they have. And so it does affect them. And then we talk about gendered professions. Have you ever thought about that? Can you think in your own mind a profession that is gendered? I mean, I showed you the whole data there, right? Why biology and not and why biology and chemistry and not physics and engineering or computer science? And although this is actually, I've seen a lot of change in this over the last like 10 years, but it used to be, you thought a nurse as a woman and a doctor as a man. Even at the school where I taught, the math teachers were men, and the English and social studies teachers were pretty well evenly distributed. The shop teachers, though, were definitely men, right? So we think about that. And so why is that? So we talked to the kids then about that doesn't make you a bad person, but if we become aware of it. And so I don't know, do you talk about these things with your students? And it does put, like, when we ask chemistry or physics teachers to talk about this, they feel a little uncomfortable about it, but where else is it going to get talked about? And then we tell the kids that, it's okay to fail. We talked about that. I heard some of you talking about that. Don't allow others to determine this. And then we can point them to places that are inclusive and work really well. Auto mechanics, I'm sorry, just saw that. Yes, that's a gendered career for sure. And that there are support systems for women. There's all sorts of women in engineering, and if they can find those support systems, and can you create the support system where you're at? And then have the kids brainstorm some ideas, like what sort of things can happen. Not only physics, but STEM. Like I said, I do apologize that this is gendered, this is biased towards physics, but all of these practices can help with STEM and computer science and engineering and all of those auto mechanics, welding, all of those things can anybody can do these. It's not limited. So do any of you, so maybe we'll throw you into, we got some time. We got like 2 minutes. Can you, we'll throw you into groups, and if you can just share maybe an experience where you might have had some of your own, either gender or racist, that's idea. Thanks for that, Sam, on there. So I guess we probably don't have time to be thrown into breakout rooms, do we? What do you think? Okay.
Yeah, we're getting closer to the time.
Yeah.
How about anyone that would like to share could unmute or use the chat? We definitely would like to hear that experience or example.
I could share one from the weekend myself, but I don't want to be the only one sharing.
My sister-in-law worked for NASA, and when she presented papers, if she used her initials and presented as SJVF or SJV Franklin, she would get a crowd of people come to her seminar. But if her paper was listed under her name, Sarah Jane, no one would show up.
Thank you. Yeah. I had a,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I was picking up supplies the other day at the hardware store for my students to build, and someone asked me if it was for my personal art project.
These little tiny microaggressions happen all the time. And so how do you protect yourself, and how do you help your students protect themselves, right? So I'll tell you my story real quick. It was a woman, she worked in malaria, and she's been working in malaria for 15 years. She had her boss actually said to her, because apparently malaria is old British white men. Anyway, had said, I should have invested more money in you, but I thought you were going to have a baby and leave my department. But she's been there for 15 years. I'm like, is that okay to say? Can you say that to people? Anyway, again, having the students sort of identify those things, and just having this conversation so they can sort of see about it. So again, this is these are sort of great conversations. One thing you can have your students do, if you haven't done this, and this is really and you yourself, Harvard implicit tests, implicit bias tests are amazing. They are so interesting just to see, and so let you know if you've got your own personal biases. And you do need to tell your kids that like your own personal biases sort of like follow you in your social media and on your computer and things like that. And decide if this is who you want to be. And so that's the resource for students. So let me go back and just share out this last resource. Thought I had it at the end, but I don't. And this is if you have more time. And this is called the underrepresented curriculum. And again, talking about helping students and, look at all the things that could influence their careers in science. And the lesson plans are here. So you can see that that's got a couple of different units for it. It's got laying the foundation. And then all of those slides that I just showed you, there's a lot of different ones to talk about. They're not all done yet. But here, unit 3 is the most important, right? Like, how can we change what we perceive as being a bad situation into something positive? And giving students the opportunity, and that is probably the most important thing. And so I guess as we finish up here today, if you would put in the chat or write down on a piece of paper, like what is one action that you are going to do from all of the resources that I shared? What is one action that you are willing to take on? Are you going to put that poster up in your room? Are you going to look at those everyday actions and make some changes? Or do you think you might want to try to put some of these curriculums into your setting or find other things? Because some of you have shared some other great resources. So before you go, that's sort of what I want to see is like, what is your action to change the way that students perceive themselves as a STEM person? And I take any questions.
Jen shared a really nice article or biography of Alice Augusta Ball, an African-American chemist who developed an injectable oil extract. So thank you for sharing that. I know I hearted that and will read this a little bit more closely, as I have a daughter who's interested in science and STEM, and I'd like to keep that interest and support.
So, well, I know I'm staying in between you and your lunches. So I do appreciate you taking the time. And if you have any questions or want some more information about the resources, if I don't know the answer, I will do my best to find it for you. So I do appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you. You're all doing great work, and just go out there and make one little action.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Colleen. And this has been really informative and a great presentation. So thank you so much. And just, please take a moment to complete the evaluation and receive your Equity credits if you need them. And just as a heads up, our next session is May 22nd, Role of Technology in STEM, Future Trends. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you, Colleen.